Suman, how's your day going so far?
Elon, good to see you. It's fantastic so far. How about yours?
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So, Suman, you're the co-founder and CEO of Personal AI, which I'm so excited to talk about today. And before we dive into that, I just wanted to congratulate you, and I know we'll get into it more in the conversation, but congratulations on the partnership with NVIDIA.
Thank you. We just put the announcement out today. Yeah.
That's fantastic, an amazing milestone, and amazing work on you guys. So that's
Thank you.
so Suman. I was looking forward to this conversation because I personally find what you're building at Personal AI fascinating. Can you fill the audience in? What is Personal AI?
The core premise of personal AI when we started back in 2020 is to solve one key problem, which is what would Elon do? What would Suman do? What would your 13-year-old daughter would do? The intention over there is, we gather these experiences, we gather this knowledge, we gather a way of thinking. We wanted to see if we are able to predict how people would think based on their past historical experiences and institutional knowledge and capture the essence of the person they are. Back in the days, we took a very contrarian approach to solving the problem, which is instead of like leveraging the cutting edge, research on the large models, we have developed small, personal, highly scalable models. Because from the get go, the core principle for the personal AI is it has to be private. It's driven by the memory, not only the memory in general, how we talk about like the AI models, as much as the memory of people, what you gather historically. And we wanted to serve pretty much everybody on the planet, right? So we need to be creating something super highly scalable. Before this, I built an AI company called Aira. It's artificial intelligence remote assistance for people who are blind and low vision. That company started back in 2015. This was the times when wearable devices were early in the stages, with Google Glass, if you remember.
Mhm.
And we went on a mission to basically fill the gaps of missing visual information for people who are blind and low vision. AI wasn't as sophisticated back then. So, as a founder, we basically had human agents. We called them Aira agents, actually. And these agents are highly trained and they are highly sophisticated to be able to provide that missing vision information for people remotely. So you have the ability of people walking around independently, going to places independently, traveling independently. Now, if Ira was more about augmenting, quote unquote, your like missing visual information for you to do things more, personal AI is about augmenting your own individual memory and the cognition, right? Because sometimes we forget too. So there is a missing
Totally.
component to that memory angle. So that is the connection between Ira and personal AI. Although Ira predominantly 70% of the services were human driven and 30% AI. And in fact, we were investing so much in AI, our investors sort of decided that we are going to stop investing in AI because our business was doing so well. Community is small, the usage is minimal, but at the same time, every business need to be accessible as well, right? So the business turned out to be more like an insurance business, and that's when I decided to build some more beyond the community, a mainstream AI company, which is personal AI.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, you had been involved at Ira in terms of the augmentation from a
Yeah.
different perspective,
Yep.
and then saw, hey, I mean, human memory is imperfect. You know what I mean? And AI is, I think, uniquely positioned to elevate that for humans. And then, my understanding is, I mean, humans largely drive organizations. So humans in a workplace setting. And I was talking to you in advance of this conversation, and I think about Stacked Search Partners, the company that I've built over the past decade, and how much data and documents and statements and intelligence we have buried in different corners of the business that are either hard to get to, or there's knowledge in the back of my head or a colleague's head and we can't get to. And wouldn't it be cool if AI could solve that, or you could have little AI agents for your business connecting and understanding everything that's ever happened at your business? I see a huge productivity add in that respect. And I'd like to ask you something, because you talked about privacy. What do you mean by that? in this setting, in this context of augmenting memory. What does that mean?
Right? The
Totally.
memory is yours. So, um, we've seen how internet has really unlocked the consumer utility, for all of us, right? AI fundamentally is driven by the data. It is a fact, like we know that. But if we are taking the same SaaS models that we had before, and we are trying to build the same, big tech like systems with AI, then that's, another recipe for disaster, where pretty much you are accruing value to a, large company, not necessarily, democratizing the core idea of the data and creating that utility for every individual person, right? So when we talk about privacy within the personal AI platform, we refer to these small, unique, we call them personas. The way to think about persona is, Elon, you could have a persona that is very much focused on your podcast business, but there could be another persona where your personality requires you to wear a hat of a COO that requires different sets of knowledge for your business, right? You can have these multiple personas. So at the end of the day, in the personal AI ecosystem, every persona has its own memory. And that memory, under zero circumstances, will be used to train any other persona's memory. And forget large language models. There is no contribution to the large language models, right? So that's what we mean by privacy. It's the level of intention behind protecting people's ideas and thoughts and the IP. Because at the end of the day, look, there are different ways of going about working in the capitalist society. And we got to enable larger groups of people to innovate and to own things and to create and to build, right? So that's kind of the school that we come from. And who we are today, personal AI fundamentally kind of bakes in those characteristics, not only in the technology, but in the people we are, in our go-to-market strategies that we deploy as well. I do know, you kind of mentioned about the AI workforce, and I want to tell a little bit about why we landed on AI workforce. I mentioned, hey, look, we wanted to unlock like what would Elon do, right? What would a corporate strategist at a particular company would do? But what would a small business owner who is running a bakery shop would do, when a client receives a call, right? So there is all these like circumstances, and every person and every unique individual thoughts offers or contributes to the overarching business or ecosystem. So in 2023, once we finished our platform, we went straight into give every consumer a personal AI model. That did not work. This was post chat GPT era. And during the times, pretty much we were pushing a highly sophisticated personal AI model down the throats of consumer, where people are more interested in, grocery lists. So there was like a market mismatch, right? And also during this was the time when LLMs are pushing heavily on the consumer side with inflection AI, character AI, trying like a different approach to it. But our intention is completely different. Like our intention of personal AI is to create your own model, right? Not just a utility from using the model as much as creating your own model. So late 2023 is when we pivoted to our AI workforce product, which is the ability to create these personas that are internal to the business that function more like how people function. And the platform allows you to collaborate with these personas alongside with the humans, and it becomes more or less like an extension to your human workforce. So that's the kind of how the company has evolved. Principles and the product and the experience and is the same, but the GTM kind of has evolved based on the demands of the market.
Fascinating. Yeah. And my goodness, the productivity gains, the value add to businesses, from having deliberate models and individual personas. And then my understanding is like you've actually got these personas to talk to each other. Pretty fascinating stuff, and we'll get to it later. And hey, how do businesses work in the future? And I see this as being a plausible route. Maybe a question, and not to put you on the spot, Suman, but like in a sentence, how's a persona different from ChatGPT or Salesforce's Agent Force? How do you sum that up? What's the difference here?
Let's say you're an attorney. ChatGPT will pass the bar, but they won't win your case.
That's
Personal
great.
AI will win your case.
That's great. Yeah, you nailed that. Suman, I know that you know, you talk a little bit about multi-memory, multimodal, multi-AI. What do those things mean?
If you break it down, they're pretty simple. multi-memory, right? If you talk about multi-memory, everything that Elon about personal AI is centered with the concepts of how humans evolve and people live, right? It's almost like so directly correlated. I remember like sitting down and reading like neuroscience books to kind of mimic the architecture based on how people understand things. A lot of technology that Sharon built from a architecture of PLM also involves a lot of those concepts. Anyway, multi-memory, there are three essential ways of how people communicate with each other. First thing is, every person has this long-term memory. Long-term memory is very well understood within the AI world. It is the data that basically goes into a specific model. In the large language model scenario, it is all the Internet of Data or Reddit data, that is basically put together into a specific model. For personal AI, a long-term memory is the long-term memory of an individual person or a persona, right? And this long term memory is also time bound. So it's a very distinct memory. It's a time bound units of memory over a period of time, meaning it has the understanding of things that are changing and evolving in a more like graph network structure. So there is a good long term memory. The second thing is clearly conversational memory, which is more around, okay, in this particular short term context, you're asking me a question, I'm responding. If you ask me, Suman, what was that like, 2 minutes ago, you were talking to me, I may or may not remember, right? But that short-term context, of course, is available in large language models with ChatGPT. This is no different, except that in this context, Learn AI would have a specific short-term context with Suman. Suman's AI would be separate context altogether. Right? So it's not one model context. But the third one, which is almost one of the core unique differentiating pieces right now within personal AI that adds tons of value, is something called relationship memory. A relationship memory is, Ilan, your relationship with me is unique than your relationship with somebody whom you're working with, right? So when somebody is having a conversation with you based on how I asked you a question or discuss a topic, your response to me will be entirely unique to how you would respond to somebody else you are working with, right? For the same prompt, same question. I think that's like really important for understanding the many to many kind of relationship that is kind of baked into personal AI. So that's what we refer to as like multi-memory, right? It's the composition that makes up to function more like how people function by considering all these factors into like a single entity called persona.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So, 10 years ago in Q2 of my business, I had no idea what happened. I got no clue. I got no idea financials and that time, what was going on, what was the context. And if you have clean data and if something like personal AI plugs into it, you can access and make sense of things from a long time ago, as you can in the short term and in different ways. I think you explained it in a great way. So what about multimodal? What's the scoop there?
Multimodal is more easier and understood pretty much within the large language model setting as well, which is this core idea of the memory is not just text, right? Memory is both what you see and what you hear and what you type. Those are the different ways of modalities, for the memory. The cool thing that we have done in the recent past for our enterprise customers is, let's just say you have tons of information kind of baked into a sets of like PowerPoints, right? And it's coming from like a specific analyst. Not only when you process that PowerPoint into the memory, the text is understood, but also the images are understood, the graphs are understood, the product documentation is understood. So when you are having a conversation with the AI, and let's just say it is about a specific detail of a unit that you need to get into the details of the picture, not only it will give you the response, but also like show up the image as well. So it's a multimodal, like from a training standpoint, from the memory standpoint, as well as multimodal from a retrieval standpoint. Most all the models are getting there now, and even that is personal. So it's not image generation as much as it's image retrieval, as well as if there is generation, then it is still like inspired by the memory or by the inference that you are getting back in that context, right? So everything is like memory inspired. That's kind of the fundamental thing.
Right.
So every
Right.
response is kind of unique to what happens, what happened in the last second.
So you mentioned AI is personal, and I feel like I read this somewhere. AI is personal when you own the memory, the model, and the device. is
Mhm.
something I've heard before in a way. And I know you worked at Qualcomm, so that might be the device piece. But what's your reaction on that? AI is personal when you own the memory, model, and device. Can you react
Okay.
to that? Yeah.
I mean, you look young, but when I was a kid, I used to carry this huge floppy disk and go to a institute to use and access a computer called mainframe. Then I type things up, edit some things, do some calculations, take the floppy disk out, and then go back. I'm only taking back with me my floppy disk. And later on, these beautiful things came up, something called a personal computer that has the same levels of access to the internet that we all do, but it has something called a storage, our files, our things. So today, if it is in my control that I pick up this laptop and I can do whatever I want to do with that laptop. So the idea of the personal computer is what? It's private to you, it's personal to you, you carry it anywhere, you can lift it. And that is the same idea of personal AI. It is yours. You own it. It's an asset. You can break it if I want to.
Yep. Yep.
So personal AI kind of carries the same principles and characteristics of what it means to be having a personal AI. It's your data. It's likely, sitting on your device. And then, clearly laptops also connect to the internet. If you are using currently the browser is a piece of software that is sitting on your laptop, but at the same time, internet allows you to access something on the cloud. So there is a sense of like hybrid nature too. And that's how personal AI functions. If you have like, let's say, a multiple different personas in your workspace for your organization, one acting as your COO, one acting as your CEO, and one is augmenting your own, you can take a persona that is highly private to you, that is dealing with highly confidential data, for example, of your pricing decisions. You make that persona available offline and run it on your PC.
Mm.
So not only it's private, you are now saving the resources on the cloud and then getting things onto the PC. But at the same time, you have the benefit of that, you know, PC plus the ability to run things on the cloud. So it's kind of a hybrid environment, which is kind of the current environment we live in the Web 2.0 world. So the reason that is important is for us to get to the masses, we need to have the model running on the devices. And that is
Mhm.
a model that is not coming from a big tech company. That is a model that something of yours. So that's kind of the differentiation. And the multi AI part in this scenario is simply ability for those personas to communicate with each other, collaborate with each other. We know the market also has an understanding of an AI agent. The way we perceive the world and we kind of design things is persona is a decision making engine. It's a decision making tool based on a specific expert. An agent is a carrier of that information
Mhm.
from one persona to the other persona, or one persona to a external decision making engine such as a LLM or such as a different agent.
Fantastic. That's great. And so, and you referenced there, how do you bring this to the masses and to millions of people? And I referenced this at the top of the conversation, the NVIDIA partnership. Can you expand on that? That's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long way coming, man. We definitely had big dreams, right? And the way to go about achieving those dreams um, does require a lot of investments. But we also seen in 2023 a lot of investment doesn't necessarily mean you get to the masses or you get to the scale, right? Because the unit economics still has to make sense. So I'm taking an approach of what I did at Aira. Aira eventual end benefit is to a individual consumer, like a person going to Walmart to shop something, right? And we created a business where Walmart makes that business accessible for all their locations. So you're basically inviting blind people to come to Walmart and shop freely without using any staff, to walk with them or to potentially, assist them on the floor, right? Because they have other things to do as well. And at the same time, it's also an independence factor for the blind person. Why is this all relevant? Well, this is all relevant because when we are thinking about the go-to-market approach, most Web2 started off with the consumer and then made their way into the enterprise. The AI companies specifically serving to the consumer, we had to start with the enterprise, figure out the unit economics, and go to small businesses and then go to the consumers. So this backs to the NVIDIA partnership primarily because NVIDIA is building these huge AI factories to bring the utility closer to the people. So that means you have to establish the inference workloads closer to the people. What personal AI motivation is to, get that value also to the people. So our partnership with NVIDIA will basically allow us to give a easy, accessible entry point for the small business owners, which are in millions, an AI persona of their own that runs locally on the edge that is closer to them, that they can communicate via telecommunication providers, because that's where the business is happening, like, which is talk and text, right? So that's like one step function from going from like AI workforce offering to the enterprise to the serving a small business market, because for them to hiring a staff means it is cutting the bottom line, right? So helping them by adding more staff means more profitability for the small business owner. So it all leads into the core mission of how can we get this utility in the hands of everybody. And it starts off with the enterprise, moves on to small business owners, and then moves to consumers. So NVIDIA piece is the small business owner piece. That's how the
Where
alignment is.
where did I sense as you talk about it a passion for not only the space and the technology and the science of the technology, but to get it in the hands of millions of people. Where does the passion come from? How did you, as
I
an
think it's the
entrepreneur yourself?
accessibility.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the core idea of accessibility. Access changes everything. It does. Internet was a huge leap for us, to be able to access. We learned people across the countries. It helped me get to the United States, right? Now, there are different ways to go about how we want to get to know people across the globe. There is knowledge that is being exchanged over the internet. It basically allowed us to access the information like never before. And, of course, like when Google came out, their mission was also more centered around the accessing the world's knowledge, world's information, and make it is available. So access fundamentally, I tend to think about as like a human right, because it's kind of baked really deep into my heart when I built Aira, which is this access to visual information should be a right for everybody. It has to be equal, right? Now we are all able to access information across the world, like using these tools called internet. People who cannot see should be able to have equal access to that information as well. So there is a lot of, I guess, inherent intrinsic motivation around the core idea of access and accessibility, and opening up access for all kinds of people in all kinds of different ways.
amazing. That's amazing. That's great. It's your passion for what you're building is contagious, and it's very exciting. So, Suman, we now know why deeply your passion and why personal AI exists. Let's dig into how the Model 3, personal AI's Model 3 platform actually works and what customers are doing with it. And so can you speak a little bit to that? Like without, bringing up the platform and giving an actual demo, maybe do a 30-second speaking demo. What's the platform like?
Since we talked about attorney earlier, let's stick to like an attorney, right? An attorney who has been serving specific types of cases, call them murder cases, in a specific zip code, and has done hundreds of them in the past for over 20 years, has a specific, unique perspectives on their take for handling case 101. When we talk about Model 3 will allow that attorney to be able to access all their past successful or non-successful cases to be able to prepare for a case 101 much faster and much better. In addition to the internal people or paralegal people who are either researching the case or either trying to tap into the attorney to prepare a draft motions, are able to enjoy the fullest understanding of how the real attorney would process that information, making that attorney more accessible for the real problems that they need to solve. And these are serious problems, right? You cannot make a mistake. You cannot assume things, right? There is a lot of intention and deliberation that goes into their specific data and their specific thoughts around how things need to be done, and then also tied back to the law. So all those things, when packed into an attorney expert, basically amplifies the work that they have to do and the impact they're able to make, and the promise that they have, or increase the odds of winning the actual case. So I told you kind of a more like a use case in the story and the impact standpoint. And technologically, I mean, I can expand on it, but I will pause there and kind of see if that will help kind of, put pieces together why Model 3.
I know. I think that was really really cool. And I'm going to deviate for 1 second here because
Sure. Yeah.
my passion is talent
Hmm.
and people and how important they are to make organizations click and to drive them forward. I'm going to put you on the spot again here. I hope that's okay. That attorney in your example, okay, now has access to this remarkable tool where it can access any precedent, any case from the past using
that he
the
has done.
personas, right?
Yep.
Does that attorney, do the best attorneys become way better, or do the average attorneys get a slight bump? Like, does the divide between the best and the average get wider, or does it shrink? Curious to get, this is just a totally out of curiosity, with the use of personas and AI tools.
We always want to and always been building on top of the things that we are already good at. We always want to get better. We always want to make our screens bigger and chips smaller. So my core thesis around that is that junior attorney or senior attorney, they always want to do better. And that's what personas can do for you, right? From a purely workforce, how that will likely shift with this new tool and the access to the idea of ubiquitous supply of personas internal to the companies is the roles are likely going to get to the decision making and more creative and more problem solving much faster. What do I mean by that? I was a developer by background. I'm an engineer. I'm a roboticist as well. I remember my first title was software engineer 1. And then I took 2 years to get to software engineer 2. And then another 2 years to get to software engineering 3. And then eventually you make it to a development manager. And then you get to a director and then you get to VP, right? There is a levels of expectations in the roles because you are accumulating knowledge in a specific domain, in a specific area, and then working your way up. So the way I think about talent is from that software engineering 1 to the VP, maybe it takes 20 years in the last decade. In the next decade, it's gonna be maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. So that software engineering 1 should start behaving more like a VP in a short order of time, right? So that's kind of my take on how I think the workforce is going to evolve. Will people not have jobs? I disagree. I think people will have more jobs and different jobs. The opportunities that we all want to explore, we all want to create, are more than what we could actually do right now. I mean, just imagine, even thinking about space, there are a lot more unknowns and problems for us to solve. And this is simply one more next evolution of the technology, very similar to what internet has done in the last 30 years. AI will do something much more better to accelerate in the next 30 years, and then we'll have newer problems to solve. So yes, there will be pains and there will be struggles, and we all have to keep up with the evolution and the changes, and then be part of the change, not necessarily fight the change.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is less of a replace or there's going to be completely new industries that are created that I don't even think we necessarily understand today. There's going to be huge changes. I agree with you completely. I think the floor output of an employee definitely increases with access to these tools. Like you said in your example, software engineer 1 might be able to act more like software engineer 5 or a VP or whatever it is. So I think that's correct. My thesis is that the best people, the people that really, I think a lot of it comes down to agency, the people that are high agency, that are constantly willing to learn and get their hands dirty and figure out new ways, those people combined with AI tools, my goodness, I don't know if it's 10x or 100x, but time will tell, and it's going to be exciting to see. Suman, a question for you, and then I'd like to get into SLMs, LLMs just a little bit, but like the personal AI platform and the personas, and you mentioned earlier in the conversation, AI depends on the data. Like that's like the building blocks of any AI, right? So for my business, what do you recommend I need to do now and to many other businesses, small, medium, enterprise, whatever it is, to be able to get the most out of personal AI or AI in general as we go forward here? I'm not the most organized guy in the world. Is that an issue? Like, you got any advice for me in terms of like how we organize our business and where we access our information, where we store it, how we store it, what's in that information? Any recommendations for me?
Some organization will be critical. And it doesn't have to be like an AI answer. it's more like just operations in general at a company. If you have everybody is doing all things at once in a more chaotic environment, you'll probably make progress to get to a proof of concept much faster. But for you to scale, you need to organize things so that way things are smooth and you scale, right? Things go fast. One of the things with personal AI, kind of we really a good magical moment is when you have this hybrid idea of the PLMs, if you will, with combined with the LLMs, right? Because LLMs has quote unquote the understanding of the best. PLMs has the understanding of the context that is deeper rooted into your business, into your people, right? Now, yeah, sure, you can extract and you can predict the things that you may want to do next based on only on your PLM, right? But we humans, we also look at things outside to kind of see what are my best practices and combine with it. So from a inference or from a predictability standpoint, that is there, right? But from a training standpoint, if your data is a chaotic sets of data, then the model is still going to be a confused model to a large degree. Yet the inference may still be pretty on spot to prioritize the elements from that chaotic data. But if you want to maximize the value of your decision making with this hybrid approach, a little bit of organization will go a long way, which is no different than operating a company.
Interesting. A great answer. The data that goes into the SLM needs to be clean, needs to be organized to get the most out of it. But at the same time, the SLM kind of interacts with an LLM, which has tons of information, and the LLM can maybe fill in some of the gaps.
Yeah, I prioritize in certain areas, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, by the way, so what's the difference between an SLM, LLM? Me and you are just throwing those words around, but for others, what's the difference there?
For technical audience, the most easiest way I can think about it as a self-contained Docker unit with your data and with your model. So if you think about like why Docker exists, is you wanted to create this like micro units of business logic that has specific function that is not polluted with anything else and that has its own scalability, almost like a microservice, right? The way we structure these PLMs, which is kind of a hybrid implementation of an SLM that has a combination of like RAG as well as GPT transformer and memory combined together. It's smaller in size. It's much more contextual and much more scalable. The architecture is different. The architecture is kind of industry experts refer to as like mixture of expert model. The closest we have gotten to is like the DeepSeek kind of a model, except that we do not pre-train, right? We do not pre-train. We basically train on companies' data and individual people's data.
Yeah, that's great. On the different personas, the personal AI platform, it lets multiple personas collaborate in channels together. They talk to each other. So any AI to AI chat transcript that like totally blew your mind.
This story is fascinating because it's not just within the personal AI platform. It's actually one of my personas having a text communication with one of the other startup founders. We know each other, so we were like messing around with each other. So it was an agent for like real estate, right? So basically, I go into the website and the agent asks you for what's your phone number, so that way the agent is expecting a human to be talking to the AI agent on the other end, so that way they can offer you like real estate services and offers. So I I give my personal persona. So I have a persona of like Suman AI into the text message. It has like a lot of understanding of who I am, what my preferences are, like what do I deal with it, and my passion for accessibility, personal AI, and things of that nature. And then the text message, the agent initiates the conversation. But the interesting thing is the phone number that I put in is my AI phone number. So now two AIs are talking to each other, and I remember it's like, oh my god, this is like someone's number. I'm like, oh shit, like the agents are talking. And 2 weeks later, I heard from him, it's like, dude, you're about to kill our servers. So
It's
the fascinating
hilarious.
thing over there was the conversation kind of like, their agent is very much motivated on selling real estate. And I'm like, well, but I want to talk about personal AI. It was a very fun conversation, but at the same time, it's very interesting to kind of read through the transcripts of what is happening in there. And that association is almost very creative, in the sense of, so I can use personal AI to build like a specific agent for each of my clients. It's like, yeah. So it was fascinating. That's one story I can
Very
tell when
cool.
I'm talking to AI. But most of the AI to AI conversation are currently very deliberate. In other words, the companies are either trying to automate like a specific workflow. In a legal setting, you have an intake persona that ensures all the information about the accident is completely organized and captured, right? But in a much more free flow form. If you are a divorce attorney and intake, you are basically having a conversation without like giving the strenuous, already people are stressed out, forms in front of those people to fill it, right? It's like, no, I have to fill it. So all those things are like much more natural now, and that information has to go to a discovery persona, right? Is this case good for us or not? Do we qualify this case or not? Is it in our wheelhouse or not? If we do, then damn, we need to go to medical expert and see what kind of medical exams that I need to order for this particular case based on my past history and who is our closest doctor that I
Hmm.
can send a letter to for requesting that medical exam. And then goes to, once you get the medical exam, you put the pieces together. It's like, okay, this has a very specific sets of arguments that creates a high likelihood of the case, and it could be worth so much.
Fascinating. So, Suman, my understanding, I might be incorrect, but you pivoted from a free consumer model to enterprise AI teammates last year. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Yeah, it's 100% correct. And this was the
Okay.
story I was telling. Like in 2023, we went all into the consumer route.
Right. Yes. Okay. So, did that change how you think about your team, the talent, or the makeup of the people you need to hire? Like, I mean, as much as you are building personas and AI people, if you want to call them, you also have human people building the AI people. Did anything change as you think about talent or building personal AI after Aira? Has your philosophy changed? Fill me in.
I mean, one thing for sure, yeah, we do build a bunch of different personas for our own internal needs. Currently, the ratio is like 1 to 2. So every employee has at least like two personas. We have around 60 of them internally to the company. And they're growing like crazy. We just rolled out our enterprise platform so people can request personas and then kind of bring them to life pretty immediately now. Because I mean that's our company as well, right? Are giving ability for some of these public company CEOs to be able to go out there and tell the investor we have 40% women, 40% men, 20% AI workforce. That's how our composition looks like. So I think this will become like a key metric for everybody to look to in the ROI. What is the revenue per employee looks like over a period of time. But story on the consumer shift to the enterprise, definitely mindset was a shift. It wasn't a dramatic shift for me primarily because I have built the B2B2C models before at Aira, which is also like serving the consumer in the end, but the business model and the revenue streams are coming from the businesses. This kind of similar but different. One thing for sure though is the GTM has dramatically changed, right? The unit economics has changed big time. The positioning and the packaging of the platform has changed from what used to be more like WhatsApp like to now more Microsoft Teams or Slack like, because fundamentally we think the AI interactions is more driven by the communications, they talk and text, right? That's kind of what AIs do. So every interface that we have developed is more kind of known interfaces for people that they have already used with their existing people, workers.
Hmm.
So the AIs will become part of your people stack, right? AI user, human user, and the part like join the channels, they collaborate with each other. So it's kind of all part of it. The core talent has shifted from like a heavy ML engineering to more analysts, architects, and math majors, if you will.
Hmm.
Primarily because we got into a point where, given a company, given you have set of use cases or problems, we basically think about it as, okay, who are the next 10 people that you would need to hire to solve these problems? Let's do that in personas, right?
Hmm.
And there is 10-20% of that problem solving skills that is needed to architect this organization, very similar to architecting a business organization.
Fascinating. You got the board that's requesting data on your workforce. And one of the metrics is, yeah, 25% of our people are AI persona.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, right? So 20 years ago, there's a huge shift for the business people to think about offshoring as a way to reduce their, overall cost, but still, get the talent. Goes back into what internet has enabled. Internet has kind of enabled access not only to the information, but to people across countries, right? I think now we are starting to get to the idea of like AI shoring, right?
So what in a startup that builds a product that is needed in the market and turns into an organization, what do the humans do? If you were to zoom out, I don't know, 10 years, 7 years, 4 years, let's say 10 years, let's go wacky. Who the heck knows what the world looks like in 10, 15 years, but what does a business look like?
One thing I'll tell you is people will talk more to each other.
Mm.
That I can predict.
Human to human.
Yes.
They're not doing retrieval. They're not doing they're going to be able to get information at their fingertips, good information with
They're not using mouse and keyboard. There is one skill as growing up you will learn, but you will not use. And for me, I have learned to write and I do not write, I type. The next generation, they learn to type. By the time they grow up, they will not type, they will talk.
Mhm.
And then the next generation, they will learn to talk either with humans as well as computers. By the time they grow up, who knows, they may be using simple gestures for some human computer interfaces and interactions.
Mhm.
But I think this particular period is getting to be more natural way of interacting with the computers. We have invented mouse and a keyboard for what? To interact with the computer, but we are not taught to use a mouse. It is not natural to us. That's not like a core human skill. A core human skill is what? Like, walk around and talk to each other and use gestures. So I think now we are at the next generation of that HCI, human computer interaction. And that evolution will allow us to do more things with the computer much faster. And that's what humans will do much
Therefore,
faster.
humans
Better
will
thinking,
spend more of their time building relationships with humans, working together.
brainstorming, talking, thinking, making the decisions and moving to the next step, less trying to use the mouse and the keyboards to find a file and send to somebody.
Yep, totally. I think about founder endurance. A lot of the companies, the founding teams that are customers of ours, these are founders that they just have an it about them. They have agency, they have resilience, they endure ups and downs and everything in between. And you're a two-time founder of successful startups. You posted, I don't know where I saw it, but somewhere on social media that founders sometimes almost like,
No.
or what I gathered from, they need to punch their frustration out. I think it was an epic video of you. Everybody should check it out. Literally like boxing. I was like, man, I do not want to get in the
It
ring
was
with
not
this guy.
crafted, it was by chance. And that's the reason why it makes it so beautiful as well.
You looked like a natural, like man. But yeah,
So
what's
here's the
the
weird story
premise
behind
behind
that.
that?
The weird story behind that is my trainer, for whatever reason, is like, you know what, Suman, I'm going to put a camera down for this one. I want to see your form. So I was doing the video so that my form is better. And obviously, I was trying to perform better because he wants to look at my, form and make sure that I'm not breaking my back, right? So it turns out that in that video, with the punching, it got to a point where I hit the punching bag and it fell down, which was pretty dramatic. I was like, wow, that was cool. But I mean, there is a reality to it. There is a truth to it, right? There is ups and downs. Lloyd introduced us, and we kind of share some of those common themes as well. But I mean, nothing is rosy, right? It's definitely hard work. It's definitely hard intentions, and you got to keep moving forward. You got to have people around you. Some people support you, some people do not, and I think you should be okay with it. Some investors want to invest in you, some do not, and you should be okay with it. At the end of the day, that grit and that resilience of, do you see things clearly or is it blur for you? And do you choose to move the path towards where there is clarity? And do you choose to get more clarity when there is blurriness? Or do you choose an alternate path? Is all your choice. So yeah, it's it's 10 years of my startup life definitely has seen through it all. And I think success is overrated. I think founders generally wants to create momentum, create positive impact in the lives of others, right? Success is almost like a byproduct of it. And I don't even know what success means anymore. And I think it's simply your ability to work towards something that a change is necessary and see that change come through to life. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Amazing. Wise words. This was great, Suman. Really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
I appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to do round two at some point in the future.
It was fun conversation, Elon. I enjoyed. Thanks.